Okay, we are now live again on YouTube, so this will be this will be part 2 of today's hearing. I'm gonna go ahead and head back to the conference room. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, hold on. I mean, he can testify through mine if he has to, but we haven't tested my microphone. Well, it must be working as it's on. Okay. Sorry, everybody's listening to him. Let me check.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, sorry about that technical difficulty. Christina, we just heard from you. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and move on to our second person signed up to testify. That's Michael Graciade.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, no, we'll just do it. Michael, just do it through mine.
Hi. Hello, Vicky.
We're going live.
Sola, what's up?
Yes. Oh, I wasn't sure if is Amy there?
Yeah, I'm here. Amy's
Amy
here.
and Michael are testifying
testify
on
under
the
my
same.
name.
I could do it through the phone right now because we're having problems getting connected.
No, I think you're doing.
Yes, I understand. We can hear you. So Michael, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and read your testimony.
Okay, first off, what I'd like to say is thanks for having the opportunity to speak before this board. We believe that senior housing is a good thing for New York City, and every project within New York City should allocate a percentage of 2 to 5% for senior housing. This would create neighborhoods with a true mix of young and old and build communities that learn and support each other. The concept of the ICO senior housing and community center is good, but it's flawed in its execution. I agree with the previous presenter that the rezoning of the area, as well as for this project, is inappropriate. It will add to congestion. It would make the seniors feel like they're housed in a project as opposed to a home, and it will disrupt the neighborhood. The second aspect of this project, which was glossed over by the architects and the builders, was the community center and its placement on 32nd Street. We didn't hear much about it, but it will be very disruptive to a residential block. A community center should not be on a residential block. It should be on a commercial street or an avenue. They can put the community center, and they didn't address it as to what it was doing or how it related to the seniors, but it should be within the complex. The second aspect that we have that's a problem is that's a big parking lot right now. Taking away a parking lot for commuters will be very disruptive to those commuters as well as the neighborhood. These people need a place to park their car so they can take public transportation. There's no allotment for that whatsoever. So to be clear, we're against the rezoning of the area, not only for the center, but for the area. Keep it at 6 stories and allow the seniors to live properly. The second thing that I have that came to mind is the location. Seniors need location next to medical. That's the most important thing as an older senior, which I am. There is a big hospital on 30th Avenue that this center should really be closer to that, as opposed to being a couple of subway stops away. When you need medical emergency, you need it immediately. The second thing here is the senior center. How are we addressing, what are we doing for these seniors? We're not doing that at all. So to be succinct and to the point, the rezoning is inappropriate, and a community center on 32nd Street is very inappropriate. It disrupts the neighborhood and it doesn't benefit anyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Annabelle, you were the only person on your applicant team, unfortunately, because of the technical difficulty that we encountered earlier. So are you able to respond to those comments? And if not, we can try to get Hannick back on as soon as we can. But I just wanted to ask if you might be able to respond.
Sure. I'll also acknowledge that Frank St. Jacques from Ackerman, the project attorney, and Kevin Paris, my director from HPD, are also managed to get on. Thank you for the quick turnaround. So I just want to say, the city sort of understands the concerns but I do think that the city has thought through the plan thoughtfully. We sort of stand by our land use rationale as previously stated. We'll note that there have been some recent rezonings in the area that have not resulted in the sort of conditions that have been stated to the north of the project for higher density along a commercial corridor. I will say the community facility on 32nd Street. However, it is pretty close to the Broadway commercial corridor. And being that it will be a community facility use, we think it'll be have limited disruption to the residential life there. It's not going to be a major commercial center. I don't believe that it's going to be, a community facility use that has come up in the past as potentially being disruptive to residents. I'm not going to say what that is, but I think, it will be minimally disruptive, and I'm sure the development team, which includes Hannock again and Mega, that are very familiar with the neighborhood and have worked on several projects in the area, will employ policies and to be as respectful as possible to surrounding residents. I'm not sure if Frank or Kevin want to supplement anything to my remarks.
Okay, we can move on. So thank you folks for delivering your public testimony. Are there any, well, actually, before I ask, we did have to set up a new webinar because of the technical issues. So if anyone is watching on the YouTube live stream that was on the previous webinar, I apologize. If you are able to email our office written testimony by 5 o'clock today, we will certainly accept it. And we can also make an exception based on the technical difficulties. So with that, we will close this item and move on to the next two calendar items, which are also related. So thank you, applicants, on these two calendar items. So moving on, actually the next three calendar items. Sorry, I thought I heard someone say something. Sorry, the last two calendar items are ULURP number 250044ZMQ and ULURP number 250045ZRQ. The applicant is 7801 Queens Holding LLC, and the affected community board is number 4. So thank you very much. If you could please begin your presentation.
Hi, good morning. My name is Frank St. Jacques. I'm with Ackerman LLP. We're a land use council for the 7801 Queens Boulevard rezoning. I was previously joined by a member of the applicant team, but I don't believe he's been able to get back on. So we'll go ahead and start the presentation, and it's possible that I may have a member of the team joining me momentarily. Great. I've just shared my screen. Vicky, do you mind just giving me a thumbs up that you can see it?
Yes. All good.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. And again, thanks for having us. This project is a collaboration between two local firms, Sunlight Development and Apex Development. Andrew Esposito from Apex Development may be joining us as a panelist if he's able to get back on. Both of these firms are active and have experience developing within Queens. Project architect is FX Collaborative. And the project environmental consultant is AKRF, formerly Philip Habib and Associates. I'll just run through some of the context and information about the development site. On the zoning map with an inset zoomed in, you can see that the rezoning area is located within the Elmhurst neighborhood. It's zoned M11 that was established back in 1961 and hasn't changed since that time. Zoning districts mapped in the surrounding area include that M11, and then directly south of the proposed rezoning area across Queens Boulevard, there's a C42 that is an R6 residential equivalent. There's also R6 mapped on the same side of Queens Boulevard on the northern side, immediately adjacent to the rezoning area across Cornish. That's an R6 with a commercial overlay. There's also R6 on the northern edge of the block between Barnwell and Cornish. And those R6 and R6 with a commercial overlay were established by rezonings in 1989 and 1990, which changed that existing M11 to R6. So there is some precedent for rezonings, private rezonings to change the existing M11 to allow non-manufacturing development within the R6. Farther from the site, there are R5 districts, and then moving farther away, there's R4 and R4B. You'll note the site is on the block between Albion and Barnwell, but we're asking to include the adjacent block front between Barnwell and Cornish to create connectivity to that existing R6 to the east of the site on the northern side of Queens Boulevard, and the C42, which is the R6 equivalent on the southern side of Queens Boulevard. Leaving the block front between Barnwell and Cornish as an M11 would create an isolated residential zoning district sort of wrapped by manufacturing. And we believe the block front between Barnwell and Cornish has the same land use rationale for including it in the rezoning. So I'll describe that in just a moment. Here's a land use map showing some of those zoning districts I just mentioned, as well as the proposed zoning area outlined in black dots, and then the development site highlighted and outlined in red. Land uses are shown on this map. Red represents commercial, blue is community facility. Purple is industrial, and then shades of sort of yellow and brown are residential. And you can see within this M11 district, there is not a significant amount of traditional industrial manufacturing use. The purple sites you see there are fewer than the sites that are shaded in red, which represent commercial use. So this, for the most part, is a manufacturing district that's been developed with a significant amount of commercial use, again, a permitted use, but not sort of a manufacturing district that has more traditional built context of maker space or heavy industrial use. So you can see that the context is pretty varied. Outside of the M11, you see more commercial and mixed uses along Queens Boulevard, and then towards the mid blocks in the north and south, lower density residential use. In the Long Island Railroad, you can see sort of cutting through the just north of the site, cutting across the screen diagonally. Just one more view showing the site itself and the adjacent block front that we would include. The proposed development site, again, shaded in red, consists of 3 contiguous tax lots. It's about 45,000 square feet. It's currently improved with a one-story, 3,600 square foot commercial building that's occupied as a bank with unenclosed parking. And then the adjacent properties and the adjacent block front are improved with 1 to 3 story commercial buildings. And you can see that context in this land use map. Again, our site highlighted in red. It may be a little hard to see, but I'll trace it with my cursor. The zoning district boundary that includes our site, this building that's at the corner, and then this adjacent block front. Again, 3-story building that is not owned by the applicant or controlled. It was not part of the proposed redevelopment. These low density properties, essentially warehouse type buildings along Queens Boulevard between Barnwell and Cornish that would be included within the rezoning area. I'll note that the Queens Boulevard is considered a wide street pursuant to zoning. It's a significant commercial corridor through Queens, running east and west. And we're about a half mile from both the Elmhurst and Grand Avenue stations. And there's also bus service available in the area, including the Q60, Q58, Q59, and express bus service. We're right across from the Pan American Hotel, and I'll just note this, what's showing as a development site here is currently under construction. I believe it's even topped out as a new charter school. Some of that context is shown here from the streetscape. You can see it's, the width of Queens Boulevard, really significantly wide street where we believe additional density would be appropriate. And then some of the uses in the both the M11 and the surrounding, some of that surrounding context along Queens Boulevard. So we are here, we filed an application to the Department of City Planning seeking 2 actions, zoning map amendment to change that existing M11 to an R7X with a C24 commercial overlay. I'll explain what that means in a moment, and a zoning text amendment to map the entire rezoning area, both block fronts as mandatory inclusionary housing and as an mandatory inclusionary housing area with MIH option 1. We believe that the proposed R7X is consistent with earlier rezonings along Queens Boulevard and the citywide policy of transit-oriented development, allowing for additional density on wide streets near transit. And we fit both of those criteria. There's been R7X mapped on Queens Boulevard to the west of the site from back in 1994 and 1996. Again, in 2006 with the city-initiated Mass Beth Woodside rezoning, and then more recent private rezonings from 2018. We noted to the community board that these rezonings are largely to the west of Community District 4 in the adjacent district. This M11 zone that's there today was established in 1961 and remains in place. So we believe that the circumstances are similar. The context is similar to the west, but do want to note for the Queens Borough President's benefit that this R7X rezoning and corresponding development has not yet occurred in Community District 4. And the last thing I'll say, just with respect to the R7X, is it permits 6.0 FAR with mandatory inclusionary housing and up to a 145-foot building. I will compare that to the adjacent R6, which allows a 3.9 FAR and up to 95 stories, and then 95 feet or 9 stories, and in certain instances on zoning lots that are greater than 20,000 square feet, up to 125 feet, so about 12 stories, and would allow an FAR of up to 4.8 for certain community facility uses. So the adjacent R6, while slightly lower density, is comparable to the proposed R7X in terms of height and FAR. Just quickly run through this depiction of the zoning map amendment on the zoning map. On the left-hand side, you have the current map, again, M11, and then where we propose to map the R7X. It's kind of an unusual boundary, but it was intended to allow for development along Queens Boulevard without encroaching too far northward into the mid-blocks. So consistent with how the zoning district boundaries are mapped along Queens Boulevard, which, you know, is sort of off a traditional grid. So they're, you know, somewhat unique zoning district boundaries. I'll note off-street parking within the R7X. We are in the outer transit zone. Off-street parking is required for about 15% of standard dwelling units, with no parking required for qualifying affordable housing units. And I just went through the bulk parameters for the R7X. The proposed development that would be facilitated by the rezoning shown here. It's a 13-story building. It's just shy of just over 266,000 square feet of total floor area, the bulk of which is residential. There's also set aside for community facility and commercial. 314 total apartments under MIH option 1 that would result in 25% of the residential floor area as affordable, or 79 permanently affordable units. We're providing more parking than is required. We're providing about, I think it's about 60%, about 50% of our parking requirement, even though, again, only about 35 spaces would be required. We recognize that while this is a transit-oriented development, this is also an area of Queens where there is car usage, and so want to accommodate for that. This would be an all-electric building with EV charging stations in the cellar, and there's about just shy of 5,700 square feet of public open space in addition to private open space within the building. I'm going to run through a couple of renderings, and then I'll show you some plans that depict some of the amenities and features that I just showed. But this is a view of the building from Queens Boulevard looking northeast. I'll note, and it was noted at the community board hearing the other night, we have projected as part of a conservative analysis on the non-applicant owned properties that were they to be developed. There's potentially 2 other projected development sites and 1 other potential development site. So, you know, while we're showing our development under the R7X, there could potentially be additional development as of right within the R7X that's comparable to what we're showing here. This is a view looking northwest, so the rear of the building. And again, these are properties that are included in the rezoning area that could also be developed. So you could see a similar scale on the adjacent block front. And then a view looking from above. And just noting again for the record that this building is included within the rezoning area and could also be redeveloped pursuant to R7X if the rezoning were approved. You can see the rear with the public open space, private open space for building residents, including potentially the commercial units along Queens Boulevard, and the community facility space, which would be along Albion. And I'll show you that in plan. We just have a couple more slides. This is a site plan showing the building rising to a height of 13 stories. They've built in a significant number of step downs, as you can see on both sort of edges of it's a U-shaped building on each of the wings to the north and south. You can see the building steps down from 13 stories down to a base height of 10 and a base height of 8. Just create some visual interest and allow for more open space for building residents. A public open space is depicted here in green. Sorry for all the hatching, but there is additional private open space behind the public open space for building residents. And you can see that here a little bit more clearly on the ground floor plan, showing retail along Queens Boulevard, the residential lobby, amenity space, space for a community facility, and parking accessible from Albion. And then the second floor, the community facility space continues. Residential for the building begins and would continue on each floor in a similar manner in a double loaded corridor. And just showing the cellar parking that would be provided. One of the reasons that this parking is in the cellar is really to free up this space at the rear, to not have parking, to have landscape open space for aesthetic and really amenity reasons, and again having the ability to create the public open space. Finally, I'll just run through the MIH breakdown. Again, this is an MIH option 1 project, which requires 25% of the residential floor area at a weighted average of 60% AMI. AMI is the area median income, with 10% at 40% AMI. So the breakdown is shown here: 32 units at 40, 15 at 60, and 32 at 80. This results in that average of 60% AMI. Provides a range of affordability across unit sizes, which we think is consistent with the AMI for Community District 4. So, goes lower and goes higher, but resulting in the weighted average of about 60% AMI. And you're seeing the breakdown of units. The breakdown of all 314 units is about 15% studios, 50% 1 bedrooms, 30% 2 bedrooms, and 5% 3 bedrooms. So we also have a good mix of unit sizes for both the standard as well as the MIH units, to provide for a variety of varied population, including families, to locate within the building. That concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and myself and Andrew Esposito are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And thank you for bearing with us through the technical difficulties earlier. In the interest of time, I'm going to move right into public testimony. So I'm going to call folks in the order that they signed up. And I believe everyone that is testifying on this item is here in person. But if there are folks on the Zoom, we will make sure to include them after those here in person have given their testimony for 7801 Queens Boulevard. So with that, I'm going to call Brianna Sia, who is sitting right here. Please begin your testimony.
Awesome. Thanks, Vicky. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Sia, and I'm here regarding to testify this application for 7801 Queens Boulevard. I'm a member of Community Board for ULIP's committee, where we did extensive review of this application to recommend that our community board disapprove of this monstrous gentrification project that would fundamentally change the character of Elmhurst by dwarfing everything around it, since most of the buildings around it are 1 to 2 stories, or at most 6 to 7 stories, since it's surrounded by R6 zones, R5 zones, and not R7. And as the applicant also mentioned, this is the first type of application we've seen in Community Board 4. We believe that this development will overwhelm our public schools, and this rezoning of one of the last remaining manufacturing districts in Elmhurst will set a dangerous precedent for developments along Queens Boulevard to displace long-term residents by flooding the market with 75% market rate housing and drive up the rent for the rest of the neighborhood. My mom was born in Elmhurst Hospital. My grandmother had one of the first Thai businesses here and was a founding member of the Thai temple that is just mere blocks from 7801 Queens Boulevard. And I want to believe that I have a future of raising a family here so I can show them our beautiful, growing little Thailand community, which the Queens Borough president has been very supportive of. Regarding families, the average household income in our district for a family of 3 is $75,000 to $78,000, which means true affordability for families of Elmhurst is 50% AMI. Anything more than 50% AMI is not for the working class people of Elmhurst, and the majority of the units in this proposal do not qualify as deeply affordable, especially with the MIH weighted at 60% AMI, and this application does not include MIH option 3. I don't know about y'all, but that future of me raising my family here isn't looking too bright. For the past 2 years, I've been looking to move within the district from my rent-stabilized apartment, but I haven't been able to find a one-bedroom or studio in Elmhurst within a budget that would keep me from being rent burdened. The developer claims that they would like to rent to people like me, but with what guarantee and with what sacrifice for our community? Only 16 of the affordable units are for residents of CB4, with the majority of the apartments being free market units not subject to any rent regulations and meant to attract wealthy transients to this working class neighborhood. Out of those 16 units, only 6 of those fall under 50% AMI, and it's noticeable that this developer opted out of the new Universal Affordability Preference Program allowed under City of Yes. And if you look at where developers have played out this exact playbook of spot zoning in places like Woodside and Long Island City, studios and one-bedrooms are now on the market for $3,500, and 2 bedrooms are on the market now for over $5,000. This means you have to make well over $100,000 to afford these units. And in our area, just 25% of residents make over that, and I'm definitely not one of them, and that's less than a majority of Queens. Lastly, this project is dangerous, and if we allow it to happen, gentrification is coming for Elmhurst, is coming for Corona, and this will be our legacy if we don't disapprove this project. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to move on to Phil Wong. If you don't mind passing the mic, thank you. Whenever you're ready, just state your name for the
Thank you.
record and begin your testimony.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Phil Wang. I've been residing in Elmhurst, Queens since 1976, and I myself is a homeowner, and I've been witnessing all the development lately, many development along Queens Boulevard, and I consider that starting from 69th Street on for the past 10 years, I see all these huge towers being built, and all of them are way above the market value of what the 1 or 2 family homeowners are charging. And I know that because I'm a homeowner, and then as a result of that, homeowners here just raise their prices to match what the rents are on these Queens Boulevard towers. So they're not helping a housing problem, they are making it worse. Right? Yes, they are affordable units, but if you look at the AMI formula and calculations, it is still beyond affordability in our neighborhood, and we know that best. I've been living here for over 45 years, close to 50 years. So when you build these mega towers and then restrict the affordable units to a community board residence, 16 units out of the 79, and that is not right. That's not right. What you're doing is that the rest of the building are just at market value, and then and even that at market value is way above what the current homeowners are charging. Okay, and I know it because again, I'm a homeowner. I deal with homeowners all the time. We love our neighborhoods. We love to keep our tenants. And then with these prices, that would just drive tenants away. So given the current business model, given the current number of affordable units and the size of the tower, it is bad for Elmhurst. It's bad for our community. So I support the resolution passed by Community Board 4. I was there that night, that this cannot move forward, and then I oppose this project. This would not benefit Elmhurst at all, and it will certainly price out the current residents living in the neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Bernard Chow, are you ready to testify? Okay, thank you. Just state your name for the record and we will start the clock.
Hi, I'm Bernie Chow. I am property owners in Amherst area. 60% AMI is definitely not affordable for New York, for Amherst. It's so close to Chinatown, Amherst Chinatown, and 60 AMI is not affordable for the people who's already living in Chinatown right there. And also on the structure, on the design of this property is just overwhelming to the rest of the neighborhood, to the rest of the landscape. We want development, but at the same time, we want graduation. We want it to be something that is fit into the neighborhood. We want something that the people look into it and see that they're not being overwhelmed by a certain structure. Not to mention that there are schools that's right across the street, which is already overwhelmed, and you're putting more than 300 units into it. That's the potential of more than 300 kids going into that neighborhood. You guys should think about years ago when the Pan Am Hotel became a homeless shelter overnight, which Phil Wong can be a testimony on that. Overnight, there's more than 60 kids flood into that school. And it's overwhelming for the facility, overwhelming for the parents and for the kids over there. So we really need to consider an overall development of the whole economy of that area and the whole eco-structure of that area. We can spend thousands of dollars worrying about chipmunks, property of chipmunks, and their distribution of population. We should worry about the property of the people also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And next and last is Mary Elena Giampino. Sorry for the mispronunciation. Please begin your testimony whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you. My name is Marilena Giampino. I'm chairperson for Queens Community Board 4 that covers Elmhurst and Corona. I'm also a born and raised concerned resident and citizen. We recently just had City before a public hearing this past Tuesday evening about this proposal, and we heard testimony from many residents of Elmhurst, including parents and fellow board members. Our ULURP committee worked very diligently researching this proposal that is being sought after by a private developer, which rezones 8 properties from an M11 zone to R7XC24 zone. 3 of these properties belong to the developer and 5 of these properties do not. I would also like to note that during the board did vote to deny the application, adopting the ULURP committee's report as to the many reasons as why to oppose this proposal. The vote was 30 against the proposal, 2 in favor, 1 abstention. I would also like to note that the applicant of this proposal alluded at our community board public meeting that he is giving $2 million to our community by allowing us to use a small portion of development's private park, which is about a 50 by 100 in a very aggravated manner. We have pride in our district, and the community of Elmhurst is very diverse, multicultural, and is home to an abundance of working immigrant families. This rezoning request that the developer is requesting will allow high density and market rate apartments. The developer is proposing 1 large development, but please keep in mind this will allow for future high density, unaffordable luxury developments in the future with these other properties. This will lead to residents being pushed out and priced out by unaffordable rents and gentrification. The MIH offered is not affordable to our community, and it's a very small amount of apartments. As a community, we also have to question if this building proposed will even get built by the applicant. We have 4 MIH sites in our district that have never been built because they're all waiting for a 421A tax abatement. These properties proposed for the residential rezoning are historically and still in a manufacturing area. These properties are brownfield sites with minimal cleanup regulation placed by the developers, which is an E designation. These sites require more than that. The proposal of the properties not belonging to the developer were not even tested. This area is not safe to live in, and as an example, high levels of cancer cases and lawsuits from neighboring PS7. With increased development projected from City of Yes, we need our manufacturing zones to accommodate industrial jobs, businesses that are allowed in these zones for economic development. We need to preserve our manufacturing areas. This is where battery farms can go instead of in residential areas, which you see communities are against having them built near their homes. Instead of disrupting the M1 zone, we should create an IBZ. The applicant of this proposal wants to rezone other people's properties without their input, which we think is pretty much illegal. The developer is only interested in the high-density zoning to allow for 13 stories, 173-foot building for maximum profits, which is not contextual to the community of Elmhurst. It seems that the applicant and city planning are proposing spot zoning in our community of Elmhurst with this proposal. Elmhurst is one of the most overcrowded communities with a very dense population already, and this will lead to incredible stress on our infrastructure and more overcrowding in our schools. This application does not correctly indicate that in its report. These very high, large density developments will cast shadows on our low density areas, and we must ask ourselves, does this project benefit? This is not a win for Elmhurst. This is a land grab.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. At this point, I will allow the developer's applicant rep to respond to the general testimony if you are able to or would like to address any of the points.
Sure.
I would personally, and I'm going to just start if I may, Frank. Rejecting UAP is completely false and erroneous. MIH is in lieu of. You cannot do both. Just to clarify that for the record. None of the sites associated are brownfields. Brownfield sites are technical definitions under environmental law from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And there are no brownfield sites involved here. And lastly, you know, I'm saddened to hear your, you know, qualification of a remark that I made as being perturbed, or whatever the term you used. I spent, you know, many hours being involved and coming to hearings and listening and participating in the dialogue. There was a self-proclaimed land use expert. I have no idea what his qualifications were, who made a statement that we were providing a very small, almost 6,000 square foot parcel of land back to the community for public open space, to which I responded that that's nearly $2 million worth of value that I don't think is small in economics or size. So I just want to clarify that for the record. Thank you.
I think we you know had pretty significant discussion with the community board. We're, you know, obviously would prefer a recommendation for approval, or approval with conditions, and we didn't get that. You know, our environmental assessment statement covers a lot of the concerns that were raised by the community board during their public review process and today in testimony. So I'll just, you know, sort of rely on that if there's specific questions. I just to sort of draw Andrew's point a little bit about universal affordability preference, or UAP. I did submit a letter to the land use committee, just explaining, you know, what Andrew said is this is a mandatory inclusionary housing project where we would map a mandatory inclusionary housing area. UAP is the new voluntary program. So that's not something that would be applicable here, or, you know, I think that because this is a private rezoning application, we're required to do mandatory inclusionary housing. So it's inclusionary housing would be required with any development above 12,500 square feet. So I think we'll rest on the record there, and we're happy to answer any follow-ups that the Queensborough President's Office may have as you're reviewing the matter.
Thank you. Thank you both. So at this time, I'm going to ask Sola just to see if anyone else has signed up on the Zoom. I know this was a webinar that we created, but I just want to make sure that we're covering everybody.
I think we're good.
Okay. And again, I just want to state for the record that we will accept written testimony until 5 o'clock today. And of course, if there was an issue with trying to sign up to testify, we will have exceptions as well, just based on the fact that the Zoom did not continue on as it should have. So with that, I'm going to close these items, and I'm going to close the hearing today. So I want to thank everyone for attending. The next scheduled land use public hearing is June 26th at 9:30 at the Helen Marshall Cultural Center downstairs, and that will be about the Long Island City rezoning. So thank you for your time, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.